Hi there, I'm Professor Juris and I wanted to make you a quick video. We had a request from one of our YouTube followers, Doug B, and Doug asks, how do I achieve soft focus? So we're going to talk about soft focus today. Soft focus used to be one of my fortes when I had a photography studio back in Youngstown, and this is the beast that I mostly used in the studio to take studio portraits. And it just takes wonderful soft focus pictures with the right equipment. And I'm going to go over this camera because if you really are interested in having a portrait studio, I don't think there's anything out there digitally that can match the quality of soft focus that you can get with this. And toward the end of the video, we'll look at one of my images that I made with this camera. The soft focus is just phenomenal. I really can't say enough for the Mamiya RB67. And what this camera uses to get soft focus is it uses a 150 soft focus lens. So this lens was specifically made by Mamiya back in the day so that you can achieve soft focus in the studio. And I'll show you how it works here in a second. But they also, I think, maybe made this lens for the Mamiya 645. But if you're thinking about getting one, I've told students before in the past about this camera, and they go looking on the internet, and again, they're always trying to save $1, and a lot of them came back with a Mamiya 645. And you know, a Mamiya 645, to be frank with you, is kind of a piece of junk as compared to this camera. This camera is a workhorse. The 645 was maybe made more for amateurs. It wasn't made for the same thing. This camera was used in studios across the country and across the world. It really was a great film camera. It takes 120 roll film and it'll create a 6x7 negative. And like I said earlier, even if you're thinking about opening a portrait studio or maybe a boudoir studio and doing pictures where you want them to be very romantic, 19th century looking, romanticism. If you're thinking about that, what I would recommend is actually using this camera and then scanning the negatives in to your computer and making your digital prints that way if you were going to go that route. Because I don't think there's anything out there digitally, although we're going to cover a couple methods in this video that you can use to digitally soften your pictures or take in a digital camera. So let's look at this for a second. This is the 150 soft focus lens, and when you get this lens, when you buy it, if you're buying it and the only place you can buy it is used now, they don't make them anymore, but when you find one, the one thing you need to make sure that you get is this filter set with it. And what these filters are is there are 3 filters that go behind the lens in the camera, and that's the key to it, I think, is putting the filtering behind the lens, not in front of the lens. So with these 3 filters, you can get just minimal soft focus, you can get moderate soft focus, and you get extreme soft focus with the 3. And the way that it basically works is you actually unscrew the front of the lens on this camera, and this front of the lens will come right off like that. And then you would take and you would put one of these filters on here. And again, you would have to rely a little bit on filter factor because, and it'll be in the owner's manual what the filter factor is on this, but you're going to lose a little bit of light with that. But by putting this filter between the lens, and then this will screw back onto here, you can really get nice soft focus images, incredible. And so that, you know, that's how you do it if you want to really get the best. I think this is the best soft focus that's out there. Now I'll show you some ways to achieve soft focus with other cameras, such as a medium format, a large format camera. One of the things we did, and this was taught to me by one of my professors at the Rhode Island School of Professional Photography in Providence back in 1977. Joe Naylor was his name, and he actually was a portrait photographer in New York City for Backrack for a long time. Backrack Studios were famous for portraits in New York, and Joseph worked there before he became a professor at the Rhode Island School of Professional Photography. But one of the things that we did, and we actually did this to some of our studio 4x5 cameras, is this is a large format lens right here. And what we did is we took a piece of This is actually a mosquito net, but you take a piece of netting, And you can do this with white or black. You'll get different effects with each one. I prefer the black. I think the black works better. But if you were using a view camera, you'd get some of this, and you could use like fishnet nylons. I don't happen to have any of those around, but if you had some fishnet nylons, you could use a piece of that. But you basically put a piece over the back of the lens like that, and that'll achieve soft focus for you. It's a little bit harder to focus when these filters are in there. Oh, and another really important thing is when you're shooting soft focus, you always want to shoot with the lens wide open, so you don't close the lens down when you're shooting with soft focus. Now, with the RB67, with the soft focus lens, you always had to close the lens down to focus, because it's really hard to focus when these filters are in the camera, or when you're using something like this. And depending on the size of your view camera lens, this one has a very small base on it. The actual lens on the back is very small compared to the front. But when you're doing that, you want to cut maybe a little hole, a little circular hole in the material, so that you still won't achieve like total soft focus. But you could also try, you know, total soft focus. And with a view camera, with the lens board, you could actually just simply stretch this over your lens board and put it back into the camera. And this will be on the back of the lens, not on the front of the lens, and that will give you some soft focus. But again, you remember you need to shoot with the lens wide open, and you'll have to stop the lens down to focus. So you could try it two ways with like a view camera. One way would be to cut a little circle out in the center, maybe about the size of a dime, depending on the back of the lens. Like this lens, the opening, if I would cut an opening, would be very small because it's such a small lens back here, the diameter of the lens. So to give you an example, if this was the back of your view camera lens and this was on here, I would probably cut an opening about the size of a dime. And what some people did is some people actually heated up or lit up like a cigarette or something and just burned a hole through there. And because most of this material is nylon, it actually gives you a nice clean opening. So you might get a piece of this, you know, go to the dollar store maybe and find some nylons if they have them there. And but again, you want them to be fishnet, not just regular nylons. Again, this was a mosquito net, and you can find these in sporting goods stores, and this works great too. I have used this in the past on like view camera lenses, so it works really nice. So that's as far as like the film cameras go. But you can, the next methods I'm going to show you, you can actually use on digital cameras, and you could probably even try this on a digital camera. And I used to tell students this, was that wanted soft focus, and some of them came up with some pretty interesting results by making this themselves. But if you have an old lens, you don't want to do this to your new lens. But a lot of times on like Craigslist or, you know, eBay, you can find cheap lenses for your digital camera. A lens somebody got, they don't want. You know, somebody inherited a lens and they have no use for it at all. You know, I went to a garage sale one time and I got a whole box of lenses for like dirt cheap. So it just depends on if you have like an extra lens that'll fit on top of your digital DSLR. And if you do, what you could do is take and stretch this material out and cut a hole in it. You know, again, you need to cut a little opening out in it. But then you could like lay this out and kind of hold it down, maybe put a rubber band around it back here, or even use a little bit of Elmer's glue and just touch it around the base of this, so you'd have a little bit of Elmer's glue once it's stretched really tight with the hole in it. And then just let that dry, and that would become your soft focus lens. And I used to use a soft focus lens on like a lot of portraits. I wouldn't shoot the whole portrait sitting all in soft focus, but I would do, again, you get 10 shots on a Mamiya RB67 on a roll of 120 film, and that was my basic sitting, would be to do 10 shots. And with those 10 shots, I might shoot 8 with the normal lens, which would be an 80mm on the RB. And after I shot, a lot of people use a 127 for portraits, which is really nice. The 127mm lens for portraits themselves, not for soft focus, is a great lens. The 150 is the only one that actually opens up for creating soft focus. So, but you know, you could put this on the back of that, and you could try this on 35mm film cameras too. You get an old lens, and that might be the best way to start it, because God, you can get lenses now for like 20 bucks on eBay. For like a Canon 35mm film camera, and just, you know, stretch it out, make a little hole through the center of it, and then glue it on with like a little bit of Elmer's glue, and that'll be an outstanding lens for you, whether it's for digital or for film, by putting some of this material on the back. Now, another thing that was taught to me at the Rhode Island School of Photography that I used a lot, especially like in weddings, was with my Hasselblad camera. I didn't really want to glue anything on the back of my Hasselblad lenses, but I still wanted some soft focus. Like, I always did a soft focus picture from the center of the aisle, way in the back of the church, when the bride and groom were looking at each other. And it was really simple because all I had to do was pop a filter on it. Now, you can buy some soft focus filters actually. If you research your filters online, they made a lot of soft focus filters. A lot of them were called soft tar for the Hasselblad, I believe. And you can get like a soft tar #1, a soft tar #2, and they would generally soften it. Another thing you could get that you could pre-buy would be like a thing called a cross star filter. And what a cross star filter was, it was actually made if there was highlights, like if there was candles lit up on the altar, it would actually put like a little cross across them. It would make them star because it had like little pieces of fishing line, like a little piece of cotton gauze. The lines were going both ways in the picture, and when that would interact with the highlight, it would create a star effect. But those work really good, for soft focus. One of the things with that is, though, if you're taking a picture of somebody in the studio with that, and you have the highlights in the eyes, what it's going to do is it's going to cross those highlights. But again, if you're going back into Photoshop and scanning that in, you can simply fix that part and leave the rest of it really nice soft focus. So that's one way. But the other way that I'm going to tell you about is fairly simple. All you have to do is get yourself some Skylight filters, and I would recommend maybe getting 3 of them. If you could get three just UV Skylight filters that go on the front of your camera lens, what you could do is you could take a dime, you could take a nickel, and you could take a quarter. And with the first lens, what you're going to do, the first one you're going to make, you're going to lay this dime in the center of the lens, and set that down right there. And then you're going to get some clear nail polish. And what you're going to do is you're just going to put little X's all the way around the outside of this, okay? And then again, with all soft focus that you're doing, you want to shoot with the lens wide open. That's really important. I know I've said that several times, but sometimes people forget and they stop the lens down, and then you don't get any soft focus because you're just shooting through the actual dime area. You're not shooting through any of this area. So, but you'll just get clear nail polish and brush some of that on in little X's. And I'll do a drawing and show you a little picture of it later. But you would just do that on the one lens and then let that dry, and then you would make one with a nickel. And basically what you're doing is you're replicating the filters that come with the RB67, but because you're putting them on the front of the lens, you don't get the greatest soft focus like you get when this is on the back of the lens. But you'd put your nickel down on there and simply brush on, some little X's with clear nail polish. Now, I've never tried it with colored nail polish, but I bet you, with the digital camera, because some nail polishes is transparent, like if you were doing a scene, you could probably get some really cool color effects, by using some clear green nail polish or some, clear red and shooting. And if you give that a try, let me know. I'd like to, see some of the results for that. But then the last one that you would make would be with a quarter, and you'd simply place a quarter down in the center of the filter and go ahead and brush that on. And once you brush that on, let that dry. Take the quarter off. I just let it dry with the quarter on so you don't smear the nail polish. But then once it's dry, just flip that off and then put that back in your filter case and maybe label which one it is. And you could call this one 25 cent. And you put that filter back in the case, and like when you're at a wedding or you're doing a portrait, you can just reach in your camera bag, grab this filter that goes on your lens, so you haven't affected your lens at all, but go ahead and screw that on. Now with these filters though, it is best if you're using a digital camera, because almost all digital camera, I think all digital cameras are autofocus anymore, would be to switch to the manual focus mode. Again, you might want to stop the lens down when you focus on the subject, but then you're going to open it back up to wide open. Now, here's the key thing too with doing this. I just thought of this because somebody always forgets, is that once you open that lens wide open, unless you're using auto exposure, you have to make sure that you set the right shutter speed for the wide open f-stop. Otherwise, you're going to get an incorrect exposure. But that's about it for soft focus, and hopefully some of those methods will get you to take some pictures that look like the early 19th century portraits that were being done with large format view cameras, and the softness. And if you are shooting with a view camera, you can also find some very early lenses that create a nice soft portrait. So you can look for those at like on eBay, and KEH Camera a lot of times will have older lenses for sale. So they're in Atlanta, but that'll give you a nice soft focus if you're into portrait studios or you want to take very romantic looking photos. So anyway, hope that helps. If that helps, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and we will see you on the next one. Okay, I just did a little quick drawing here, and I know this looks like an amazing sprinkle top donut that you would get at Bill's Donuts out in Centerville, but this is a diagram or a drawing I made of how your filter should look. So again, I would just put a nickel or a dime in the center while you do this of a clear UV filter, a Skylight filter that screws onto the front of your lens. And then I would just take clear nail polish and make these little X's randomly. You can even make them more random than what I have here. I kind of went around in a circle pattern, but you know, and this will give you a soft focus effect. So you just let this dry. Once it's dry, you can put it back in your little lens case. Oh, another thing I didn't talk about in the video was something that a lot of photographers used for this was, instead of putting this clear nail polish on, and I never did this because it was messy, but you could put a dime like in the center to make sure you're not, you know, coating the whole lens, but just take a little bit of Vaseline on your finger and run it around on the outside, you know, and you could just run it in a swirling pattern like that, and that will also give you a soft focus. And then you need to make sure you store that in your camera case, or in your in the filter case that the filter comes with, so that it doesn't get all coated with dust. And that's always a little bit messier, but I guess if you're just using it in a studio and you could set it up on the shelf in your inside the case, again, I think you wouldn't want to just set it on the shelf, not in the filter case, because that would just get coated with dust. But putting it in the filter case. And another thing some people have used is like clear lacquer sprays. So you could put a dime or something in there and just give some little blasts of clear lacquer spray around, and that'll also give you a soft focus effect. And there's a little program out there, I don't know if you guys heard of it, it's called Google. And I just Googled soft focus, and sure enough, a filter came up that's being made today. So you may want to try this filter right here. It's $55, but could be a great investment, and they have all different sizes. So again, you need to make sure that you're getting the size that fits, that'll screw onto the front of your lens. So it's not the focal length of the lens when you're getting a filter, it's the actual size of the front of the lens. And you can measure it on your lens if you have a millimeter ruler, or you can simply look on the back of your lens cap to find the filter size, or you know, maybe look it up on the internet, that lens, if you can't find the size. But the easiest way is just to measure it with a millimeter ruler. But they are out there. There was a number of them. I just pulled this one down to show you that they are available. So you don't even have to make one. You can just buy one if you want. And I wanted to show you this portrait real quick. This was shot with a Hasselblad, and this was shot in Manhattan in this person's home. But this was actually James Hurst. But and it was done with a #1 soft tar. So you could see by the skin in this, the skin becomes very soft, and the highlights, it'll also emphasize the highlights, so he kind of has this glow going on by the thing. And because of the soft tar filter, you can kind of see this was, I don't remember what this actually was or something, but it was like this was just done in a dark room, so a room with actually no light, and I was only lighting him, but you could kind of see the soft tar #1 or whatever I used on that would give you some streaking if the lights are moving around. So kind of nice, but just kind of wanted to show you this taken with a Hasselblad, so you can even achieve soft focus with the sharpest lenses in the world. And this is actually a bridal portrait that I did way back in early 80s, and This was done with the Mamiya RB67 on Tri-X film, and it was using the 150 soft focus lens. And I probably had the medium disc in here when I did that. And let's see if we can blow this up a little bit so you can actually see the skin. But the nice thing again about it is with the RB is it really creates a softness. You could kind of see the softness that's created within this. Now this was cropped a little bit when I made the actual print, so I cropped this black area out, but came out. I printed this as a 16 by 20, and that was also the nice thing about the RB67 was you had that bigger negative that was could be used in a landscape mode or a portrait mode. The RB on the RB67 stands for revolving back. And what revolving back means is I can turn the back to make it a vertical, a portrait picture, or I can flip it to the landscape mode. It just rotates the back. So it's a 6x7 negative that goes either way. But this just shows you the beauty that can be created with a soft focus lens. Again, if this was all sharp, it would not be nearly as romantic as a portrait as it is. And she used this for her bridal portrait, and I printed it as a 16 by 20 black and white print and toned it, but just gorgeous. And this is another portrait that I did with the RB, and this was just a friend of mine, and we were doing this for fun. But this was done with the RB67 with the minimal amount of soft focus to it, and you can see the reason I'm showing you this one is you can see that even a masculine man that has marks and stuff on their skin and stuff, it still makes him look rough, but it does soften it down a little bit, which does save. The reason I liked the RB back in the day was it saved me a lot of retouching. Again, Photoshop wasn't around then, and with that lens you could have somebody come in that really had a lot of acne or something, and by putting that maximum diffusion disc in, you could kind of blend it all with the skin and need very little actual retouching. But again, now with Photoshop, it's so easy to retouch, and they actually even make filters for complexions like that. But it really softened this down, and I think this came out as a great portrait. And this was a portrait that I made, I would say probably around 1990. And this was taken over actually in a studio space I had over on Front Street when I had the studio space. And the topic on this was the Buck 119 knife that she's holding, that the model's holding. And this was again done with the RB and probably the minimal soft focus. But, I always shot it with that. No matter what the portrait was, I would shoot with it. If I was shooting a portrait with that minimal soft focus disc. And what I really liked about that was, again, with the skin, it kind of really blends the skin together. And in a digital sense, what we're talking about is pixels. So blending the pixels together, or blending any imperfections that might be in the skin, if a person had any imperfections, that it would come out just beautiful. And that's the way this was. And another thing I liked about when you use the soft focus lens is, again, the highlights tend to take on this total different feeling to them, like this knife right here. It almost seems like it's liquid by using that. So it's a kind of a nice thing to do. But so I think that's about it for the self portraits I wanted, or the soft focus portraits that I wanted to show you. So hope that helps. And if you have any questions, let me know. Thank you.